Hello. My name is Emery. Welcome to Coding Australia. This project is called Smiley Face.
So this is going to be Scratch meeting Canvas. So we need to open up a few things. So I'll open up Scratch, which I'm going to need, and I'm going to open up where are we? This one? Yep. And I need my Canvas projects in here, and I need to open this with Kate as well. A little bit of mucking around here to start with, but it has to be done while they're recording, otherwise you've got a problem. So I've got the three of them going here at the moment. Let's go back over here and let's open up this project. Alright, so we start with Scratch. The Scratch project has a yellow backdrop, so you just paint a yellow backdrop, click paint and hit yellow, and you get a yellow backdrop, no scripts, and our sprite is a blue dot in the middle of the screen, just one little blue dot. Sometimes you need it, sometimes you don't, so you're better off having it. You can just get rid of the cat and put that in there. Now the script is going to draw the rosette. This is what it does. It draws a square in a circle and produces a rosette. Alright, here is that's what it looks like on the big screen, and this is the script that does it. So you start out with some stuff under pen, clear, pen color and pen size. Then you get some position stuff, go to the middle and point in that direction, and then you add these two loops. The inside loop does 4 times, moves 100 steps and turns 90 degrees. So you probably, or hopefully you figured out that's a square. Pen down, draw it, pen up. Then it turns 5 degrees and does it again. And it does it 72 times. Now, see, I won't give too much away, but if I change that to that and that to that, and then I run it, I get another rosette that's a little bit finer because it doesn't turn quite so much each time. That's why there's 120 squares turning 3 degrees, which is 360, back to where you started from. Alright, so that's what the Scratch project looks like. Now let's move over here. Now this is what you get when you write it in Canvas, and I'll blow it up a little bit. Let's go through it bit by bit. There are other Canvas things you can look at on the website. Here's how the canvas itself, which is a 600 by 600 canvas, and what it will look like. It will have it be in the middle. That's what's telling us it's in the middle. It will have a solid border, and it will have a background. Border's kind of browny orange, background's yellow, similar to what we have in Scratch. Then down here we do a canvas declaration, set the width and ID it, and this you can put in as well, although most modern browsers you shouldn't need that. Then two pretty standard statements to start off our script that's going to generate this thing. That one you need, and that one you need. But if you look up help and that, you'll find they can be slightly different, but that's the best place to start. Now the part that gets a bit more interesting is that the next thing you do is you do a translate, and what that does is it actually puts what's called the origin in the middle of the canvas, not up in the top left hand corner where it normally sits. So that means that when you draw from that spot, everything's done in the center. The line width is set, and then here we go. I've sort of changed this already. Here's a 120 and a 3, and instead of having a 4 lines to make a square, we just can declare using rect, a canvas word, to do that. And then we set our stroke style at blue, and then we say stroke, and it does it. And then it says rotate a little bit using that statement there, and it does 120 times. So we'll save it, and then we'll open it in Firefox and see what we get. There we go. So that's 3 by 120. We could make it a little bit finer. We could make it 180 and 2. So what we do is we save it. It shows it's modified, so you save it, and then you go back to the browser and you refresh, and there it is, even finer. So there you have Scratch and Canvas coming together. Alright, now we're going to do a smiley face. We're going to do it in Scratch, and then we're going to do it in Canvas. This is what it looks like in Scratch. First things first. Over here we have a backdrop. Now the backdrop is painted using 2 colours with a gradient, and the 2 colours are that one and that one. That one, and let me see now, it's that one and that one. Okay, so pick those 2 because you'll see they come up again in Canvas a bit later using those RGBA statements for background colours, and you'll see some gradient stuff going on in there as well, which you would have come across somewhere maybe if you've gone over to the website. It doesn't matter if you haven't, you'll get to learn it in Canvas instead. So that's how you get your backdrop. So you pick your 2 colours, get your bucket, click in there with the bucket, and you'll get what you want. Okay, now the head itself, it's bit not so much complicated, but a slightly strange way to actually do it. Here's the sprite for the edge of the head, and not only do you draw the edge of the head, but you draw the stuff that's on the inside as well. Now the way you do that is you use a pen which is a certain thickness and a colour which will be yellow, that's yellow, and you repeat 82 times. So you draw the yellow bit, then you stamp the actual sprite itself, which is that's how it gets it for you. Now if I just pull these out of the way for the minute, I'll show you what I mean. So that's the head. So it's not only stamping the black exterior, it's also doing the interior as well. So that's the head. Now in Canvas we're going to do it in stages as well. So we do the head, then we do the eyes, then we do the mouth. Same thing here. If I just put that back on there and take you over here, here is the costume. It's blown up to 400 by the way, so that's its natural size. So that's what it looks like, and its script is when I receive eyes, go to that spot, go to front and stamp. Alright, now that go to front just to make sure that it sits in front of the yellow. Okay, turn 15 degrees and do it 24 times, which is the 360, and that will get you the eyes. Okay, so let's just detach one of them and we'll run it and see what happens. We'll see which eye we're going to get. We're supposed to get the left eye, I think. Yep, there's the left eye. Now if I put that back in there and do it again and call them up, they should go up together. There's no variables here, so you don't have any conflict. Duplication, sometimes you can get into trouble with whether the variables belong to a sprite or the whole thing. Here we haven't got any. We're using a dir variable over here, but that's it. So back over here, so right and left are exactly the same, so hopefully you drag one over onto the other or duplicated it and just change the X value to get you the result you want. Alright, now for the mouth. The mouth is another slightly thicker, that's blown up to 200, so that's its natural size there. You can make it a bit thicker if you like, and the script for the mouth uses blocks because the mouth's actually got 2 parts to it. So let me run it and show you what I mean, and you'll see this light up when it gets there. So there we go. So it's doing the mouth and it's using more blocks. You can go away to Scratch and find out what is doing what here. There are two more block or sub blocks being called up twice. Once, twice. One draws one part of the mouth, the other draws the other part of the mouth, and it does it by drawing a semicircle twice, starting from a different centre. So the centre changes, which is why the centre Y value changes here. One it's 100, which puts it around there somewhere, and the other one's 150, which puts it up a bit further, and that will give you a slightly flatter curve. The radius, the repeat, and the centre and the move are all defining, if you like, what the shape of it is, and it also stamps the actual costume, the red costume, which is how you get it. And change your direction, repeats it a certain number of times. So you play with repeat here, 6136, to get the mouth exactly where you want it. Alright, and that's how you draw a smiley face in Scratch, and next time we'll see how it looks in Canvas. Moving right along, so now we're doing the smiley face in Canvas, and as I promised from before, we're going to have a backdrop very similar to the one in Canvas, and this is where you define what you want, and this is how you use the colours. So these two colours here, that there is sort of the purpley one, and this is kind of the bluey one there. Okay, so and they're all similar, and the reason that you've got to do it is you'll see the comments on the side here. It's because there's no standard syntax for each of the different browsers that you might be using. Maybe it's probably changed by now, but at the time I've been doing this I haven't seen it, so I'm just putting everything in there, and you'll find we use a bit more of that later on as well with the gradient stuff when we're doing websites. So that gets you your backdrop or your canvas, that part does, and then down here similar definition type stuff that we talked about before. And when we were doing the rosette earlier, we went to the middle, so this is how you go to the middle of the canvas. It's a slightly different size, it's a bit wider and a bit less height involved, looks a bit closer to the Scratch one as well. And then as promised, we've got three parts going on here. So what I'll do is I will comment out these two for the moment, so we can have a quick look at what actually goes on. Here's the function head. This is how you draw it. Okay, it's slightly different because you don't have to sort of draw and move and stamp and carry on like that. You just use a fill style. Stroke style is black, fill style is yellow. That's what it says, and that will just get you the circle that you want. So let's have a look here. Okay, oh, I didn't save it, that would help. Right, now let's see what we've got. That's more like it. So there's your head. Okay, and then we go down and do the eyes, and I think the eyes were 45 and 45. Here they're 50-50, so fairly close. The radius of the circle, same thing again. So the fill style of the eyes is a kind of a browny colour. We didn't change the stroke style from before. You can if you want, but we didn't. So it sort of holds that value down here, and then it just draws it. As a matter of fact, if you have a look, you'll notice that for the eyes and also for the mouth, that what it is, did I save that? No, I didn't. And you'll notice that when you do the eye, there's no edge. So it's just the one colour. So that's why your eyes look like that. There is no stroke, it's just all fill. So there's your two eyes. Okay, eye left, eye right, same formulas to do it with the 0 to 2 math pi, which is a full circle, and it just draws it and fills it as brown, and bingo, you get what you want like that. So they're the eyes, and then the mouth. And as I remember, I said there's a slightly different way that we do the mouth, and one of the ways we do the mouth is the way you would do it in Scratch, which is this one. So that statement there, that arc statement, which uses some variables up here, you can actually put all these things, if you like, in here instead, but you should get used to the idea of having some variables here. Okay, so we've got a position, and then we've got a radius, if you like, of the size, and then where we start and where we finish. So it's a calculation like that. So up here it draws a complete circle, down here it draws a bit of a circle. part of a circle. This is what gets you the arc. So if I take this one out for a minute, the upper, just have a look at the lower lip. We'll save it again, have a look at what it's doing. Okay, and so the lower lip is in fact a semicircle, part of a circle. The part that's different and new and can take quite a while to get your head around is this part here. Now, I'm not here to give us a lesson on quadratic curves at this particular moment in time. If you want to go and find out how this stuff works, go for it. It gets quite fancy, quite flash. You can draw all sorts of different shape curves as long as you understand the maths behind it, and that's what you'll get. So your upper lip isn't actually, it's a quadratic curve, it's not a semicircle. Just take my word for it. And so when you do it, that's what you get. Now you probably could have done a circle from up here somewhere and made it flatter and done all that, but this way you're learning another bit of stuff, and this can be handy to know, and you can play with these numbers and watch what happens to your mouth. Okay, so there is the smiley face in canvas. Gradient, and the only reason we're doing this is because the gradient's going to come up again in the canvas project similar to this. So in Scratch it's pretty straightforward. The script is that for the backdrop. It just clears everything. Now there are 4 ways this dot painting works, and what I've done is I've gone when 1 key pressed, when 2 key pressed, when 3 key pressed, and when 4 key pressed. So if I press 1, as you can see, it's actually drawing. There's the costume, alright, and the costume, if I blow it up, it's just a white line that gets a little bit smaller each time. Alright, so each time it draws it gets a little bit smaller, like so. But the problem is that I shouldn't be diving through the costumes because it's changing every time I click on it. So let's try that again, but before we do that, watch this. It's going to take forever. So if we put it into turbo mode and press 1, it's a little bit quicker. So there you go. And there's your costumes. I'll do it again. Okay, and that's what it does. So it does start with costume 1, and it does a little stampy repeat thing here with the drawing, and in here this is the part that is much the same for all of them. Goes to the middle, points in a certain direction, moves out a certain radius, and then does its little thing in there. Changes its direction, does it again 24 times. That's what gets you around the ring. When it goes to the next costume, the radius comes down a little bit, so the radius starts at 150 and then away it goes. It's got a pen colour in there that it probably doesn't need. Let's try that again. Here, the pen colour is totally irrelevant. So there you have it. Okay, done. Now if we go to number 2 and have a look, we've got exactly the same script. The only thing that's changed is the costume. So over here everything's exactly the same, except when I press, oh, don't need that, it can go. So let's try number 2. Okay, so that's kind of a pretty ordinary way of doing it. It draws each little dot. The ones over here, if you go back over here, you'll notice this repeat's gone. It's just been replaced by the stamp, because all it does this time is it just stamps the costume and it resizes the dot. So when I press 3, it's pretty quick because turbo's on. It just resizes it. And this one, same thing again. Duplicate the costume, change the colours, and when you run it with 4, that's what you get. So there's the 4 dots. Very similar, slightly different way of doing it, getting you the results, and then we'll have a look at how it all works in Canvas. Okay, so let's have a look at the Canvas equivalent of the Scratch project that had those 4 ways of doing the dots. We'll look at the first 2, which are the ones that were drawn, and then we'll go and have a look at the actual images themselves and how we can do it using images. So this is how it looks. They all look pretty much for muchness. So this is what the white one looks like, and this is the script that gets it there. Now, one of the things that's changed up the top here is that instead of that all those background statements, we've still got that stuff with the different browsers we need to have, but we're using an image this time across all of them. You can leave it the other way if you wish, but anyway, this is just to show you how it works. So we've got a background image, and that's it there. It's a 300 by 300, which in effect was just a screen dump and then an edit of the gradient backdrop in the Scratch project, so that they pretty much stayed the same look about them, and put them into the subdirectory images and write it like this, and it works. Now down here, same story, 600 by 600. We've truncated, if you like, for want of a better word, the 2 statements into one here that you've got to have to start things off, declaring the canvas. I think one day it'll be 3D, not sure about all that, but anyway, then we do some translating into the middle, and we have a variable called dot size, which we're going to change. If you remember, those sprites change size, so we're doing the same thing here. We're just calling it dot size, declaring our radius is halfway and making it a little bit smaller so that it's inside the canvas. And then we've got our 2 loops. The inner loop is the one that draws the circle of dots, and that's how it's done. So it uses some translate and rotate, which is very similar to point in direction and move type stuff. So that's how it works. In here is the arc declaration that actually draws the circle, so that's what you need, 0 to 2 times the math pi, false or true. And there's the dot size, so that says how big it's going to be, the little dot that you draw. Okay, so it does that 36 times. Then the radius is taken down a little bit, and then the size of the dot is taken down a little bit. Now, for a starter, the dot goes down by that much. When you get closer to the middle, it goes down a little bit more, and that's just the preference there, so that it looks okay once you draw it. So that's the script, and that's the result there. Okay, now to get the other one, which was the coloured one, everything once again exactly the same. Nothing's changed except for this crude little bit of colour stuff here. I didn't use RGBAs. I could if I wanted to, but I didn't. So you can say the first one, when J is 1, white, yellow, brown, red, green. Everything else stays exactly the same, and if you run that, you get that. So same position, everything's the same, except you get the colour happening instead. Alright, now we did the drawing, and now we're going to do the actual image part of it, which is in the Scratch project that was actually dots that you drew, and in this case it's the same thing again. So if you have a look at that, you'll notice it's slightly off center. I'll come back to that, but this is what we're heading for, and the way we do it is like this. This is the script. Now it's up the top hasn't changed at all. It's exactly the same. Nothing changes till you get down to around about here, and this is where the scripts change. So little things you need to notice. First of all, down here you need an image. There's the backdrop, there's the dot. It's 50 by 50 and it's white, sits there. So all your numbers have got to match, because what's happening is that the dots get smaller, and the way that happens is in here we now have a draw image that's a little bit more involved than your standard draw image. There are 4 sets of numbers that define different parts of how the image is. Where it is, which part of the image it might be, how big it is, where you want to put it, and what size you want it to be. So you can do all sorts of fancy things with images, and you feel free to go away and play with that. Go get an image and play with those numbers and watch what happens. All sorts of wonderful things. Up here the radius, again same thing. 2 variables, x size, y size, and those are what are changed. Now down here is the if statement, and it will change the size of the dot. If it's less than 2 by 5, if it's more than 2 by 10. So this, and the other thing I haven't mentioned before is this truncation here as well. So I may have already mentioned that, just to notice that those are now one statement if you haven't spotted that before. Okay, so over here, when you run it, it's slightly off center, and that's the reason for that is because of how the image itself is read and located. So the point of reference here is that it picks up the image and its reference is up in this corner here. So if you wanted to get clever, you could probably start playing with these numbers in here, or perhaps here somewhere, so that that image actually, when it's displayed, just translates ever so slightly to a different spot, so it's kind of displayed center. At the moment it's displayed from there, and that's what makes it look a little bit off center. Alright, so I'll let you play with that. Okay, now when we move to the other one, which is this, alright, there's a couple of extra bits that happen. Let me just show you what happens here. Okay, so it's the same result except the colours come into it now. It's a different image. It's the previous one you copy and paste 5 times in a row, and you wind up with this. So it's now 250 by 50 with the 5 colours, and they've got to be set exactly because it's going to pick up that bit of the image, then that bit, then that bit, then that bit, then that bit. And for those of you who are slightly thinking ahead, this is the kind of a pretty basic introduction to how animation works. So if you can try and imagine that these are perhaps, I don't know, bats flying, for example, and the wings are in different positions, and you want to make it animate, well, you can be picking up different bits of it. It's called a sprite sheet, the technical term, and it picks up different bits of the sprite sheet to make it look animated. For this project, it just picks up different colours and puts them in a different spot. Alright, and that's how you get this. So back over here. Now in the previous one, we had X size, Y size, and we changed the size. In this one, we've still got X, Y, Y size, but we need another variable, and that variable we're going to call X dot. And what happens with X dot is this. You set the X dot to 0, and here is the start point of the dot's image. You want to start it up in that top corner there and pick that bit up. So that's what this does. It picks up 50-50 of the 50 by 250 image, alright, and plonks it. This is how big it is, this is where it puts it, and that's the size of it. So lots of things happening here. It then goes through its process. 36 dots comes down here, the radius comes back, and the dot moves up a position. So what happens is it starts here at 50. So that's why you change this here for here. It picks up a different part of the image. Same setup here as far as the size is concerned. Different image obviously, and the rest of it is exactly the same. Radius, all that stuff. So I presume what you're doing is you've taken one of these, saved it under new name, and just changed the code. I wouldn't code everything from scratch. So that's what we get. And if you want to start playing with positioning this so it sits dead center, you go for it.
Thank you, too.